Okay, that's really a lot of people, so I'm getting very nervous.
I'm also very nervous.
Okay, Suri, maybe you can just introduce who are you and what do you do?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siu Rui. I'm one of the co-founders of Carousell, and I'm also the CEO. And I work mainly on the overall strategy and direction of the company. Still very heavily involved in product. It's a big passion of mine, and very excited to be here. So just a fun fact. 5 years ago, when I just came back from Silicon Valley, from the NUS Overseas College program, I had attended this little conference in Paya Lebar. And that very conference is actually Tech in Asia version 1. So I was sitting right there like you guys, totally inspired by all the speakers, and it's a great honor to be out here to be able to share our story today. So good afternoon, everyone. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting as well. Very important for us. Okay, so let's just start with a background story. Why don't we just start with the early days of Carousell? What was it like when you first started the company?
So when we first started Carousell 5 years ago, it was me, Lucas, and Marcus. We had just come back from Silicon Valley. We had spent a year there. We were inspired by technology, fell in love with it, and more importantly, fell in love with the idea that technology can solve problems and make a huge impact at scale, worldwide impact. So when we came back to Singapore, we were on to finding a problem to solve. And one of those problems was, we had all these things that were sitting at home, unused, underused, that we wanted to sell. And we would sell them in the past on forums and desktop classified sites, but we just felt like those were so difficult to sell on. We got lazy, and we wanted a much easier way to do it. So we literally just got to building the first version of Carousell for ourselves. So it was a snap list sell 30 seconds application, brought it to a hackathon, realized that a couple hundred other people also really resonated with this problem, and that gave us the confidence to make our parents very angry and decide to do Carousell full time. So that was in May 2012. So it was really a bunch of us who just cared a lot about building great products that would solve meaningful problems, especially for ourselves, and that had immense scale. So that was really why we got started and how we got started. And 5 years on, I'd say that's still the fundamental philosophy of Carousell, right? Making sure that we solve problems, we build great products that our community cares a lot about.
I think that's one of the interesting things about building a company and starting a company. It's so difficult to know that whether you should actually spend your a good part of your career on a certain product, right? So when you first started as a product that you start to use yourself, and how do you know that could be a company?
It's a really good question. So our legal team won't be very happy about this, but when we first started Carousell, it was not even meant to be a company. So when we started Carousell, it was really just a product that we liked. We had started development in May 2012, launched it on 13 August 2012. Not sure how many of you here have used Carousell since 2012, but if you had used Carousell in 2012, we actually had no company yet. So we had only incorporated Carousell Private Limited on 2nd January 2013 out of a necessity, because we were entering into a partnership contract, and we were almost going to sign it in our personal names. So in many ways, we started thinking about building this as a business after realizing that this was a product that our community cared a lot about. And we really wanted to find resources and means to scale the community. And that's why there was things like, going for a partnership, finding the ACE Startups grant, and then eventually getting venture funding to scale up the company. So in many ways, a lot of what drove us to becoming a business was still funneled back to the original mission and just about building great products, really inspiring people to start selling.
Okay, so and so much for being a legal company. So back then, how do you even have the confidence to actually compete with like a lot of other alternative products, right? There are like Craigslist and also like other 701 classified and things like that. So where do you get the confidence and how do you envision this entire classified market to actually evolve to the point that you think Carousell can be actually one of the market leaders?
So when we started Carousell, I think the main reason of why we started Carousell was because this was something that we felt we wanted for ourselves. And in fact, we were users of all these classified sites before, right? And it was really fun to do. And we just realized that we're spending so much more time on the iPhone and the mobile phone that a mobile-centric version of that experience would be amazing. So we literally went to the App Store and searched for apps like this. There was nothing like this 5 years ago. And that was what really prompted us to start Carousell. So I think just being the Snapchat generation or Instagram generation, we just intuitively felt like this was the experience that we wanted. We couldn't get it in the market, and we just thought, like, why not build it? And it was less about what happens if Craigslist or SPH or 701 search is going to crush us. It was more of, here's a need. There's no product that solves that need. Like, we want to see this product come to life, and that really prompted us to go out to make it happen. So that really was the way we approached it, and less about worrying about competition, right?
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about product later on. I just want to go on to like basically you as a founder,
Sure.
right? So like you mentioned that you're a CEO, the founder of like Carousell, co-founder of Carousell, sorry. So what do you exactly do day to day as the CEO of Carousell?
Yeah, I think the short answer is get out of the way, right? So my job now, I think broadly speaking, falls into 3 buckets, right? I think the first bucket of it is really setting the overall strategy and direction of the company, and aligning it to the overall mission of inspiring the world to start selling, and making sure that we fill people's lives with meaningful things and experiences. So that's the first and foremost thing that I do, right? So setting the direction, strategy, aligning the company on the overall mission, and being a custodian of the values of the company. I think that's my primary job. And the second thing that I do on a daily basis is ensure the success of the team. So we now have a team of about 140 people. We have a full executive team that helps run the company. And each of them, and not just the executives, but every single person we hire in the company are way smarter than I am or my co-founders in their respective areas, right? So I was not kidding about getting out of the way, because these guys really know their stuff, and we want to make sure that they get the resources to do what they need to do, and we remove the obstacles for them. And the third thing of my job chiefly is in learning from the best around the world and hiring the best people so that we can have the organization learn from them and actually leverage their experiences and expertise in growing the business, right? So that's my role today, yeah.
So speaking of like learning from like smart people, so recently like you posted a picture with Mark Zuckerberg and yourself, right? So what do you guys talk about? Can you share it with us?
Yeah, sure. So we were very lucky to be selected to be one of 15 startups to be on a round table with Mark Zuckerberg after the F8 conference, the Facebook F8 developer conference in San Jose. And we talked broadly about technology and about building communities worldwide. And one of the things I told him was like, hey Mark, in 2011 I was sitting in Stanford University, one of the events, startup school, actually by Y Combinator. And he was a guest speaker there. So I was sitting in awe and like watching him share his wisdom. And I was really inspired. So I said, hey Mark, thank you for inspiring me to do a startup and for building products. And thank you for being my one-way mentor. Because he literally was a big inspiration in our journey. And we told him about what he did in 2011 and giving talks like this was a big boost for us, because now in Singapore we have a thriving startup ecosystem. we want to be supportive in making sure that events like this also inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. And these are important things because the people in this room over here, the future entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs today could be building products that are going to be impacting the next millions or billions of people that will be coming online. And I think that's a very important thing to do in the world. We are increasingly mobile, increasingly a technology-driven society, and there are many unique challenges in this part of the world, and they're just growing challenges that, I think if more people channel their passion and talent to solving these problems, I think the world will be a much more phenomenal place.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So I want to talk a little bit like we talk about all the high stuff and like the happy stuff so far. I'm going to talk about some of the sad stuff, like some of your low points. I think a lot of people would think that like Carousell is a very successful company. It is a very successful company. I think it's always very reassuring to hear that like sometimes Carousell fuck up as well. So like obviously you went through some like serious low points, and then end of the day I think you came out okay. I hope you're okay. So can you
Am I okay?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're okay. So can you just tell us like what are some of the hardest parts in the history of like Carousell?
Yeah. So hardest ones are hardest. Let me think. I think in general, every single day of a startup, you think it gets easier after 5 years, but every single day it's still very, very hard. Like
I feel you.
there's a new challenge every single day. But if I were to just kind of pick one that I'd like to share about today, I guess it's our challenge as scaling the organization, right? So when we first started Carousell, it was just 3 of us sitting around a table and plug in at Block 71, just hacking away. So 3 of us every day go for lunch and dinner together, full alignment. At 5 people, 10 people, you could still all squeeze around the lunch table. We'll talk about the business or the product, about why we're building certain things, and that's all good, right? And then I think at 20 people, we started going for reunion dinner or like welcome dinners with 2 zi cha tables, and still I think alignment was there. I think things get really difficult when you approach 30, 40 people. This was the time when Lucas, Marcus, and I were essentially running the country teams, most of the functions single-handedly, right? Like each of us were owning big chunks of the organization. And that meant like we were super stretched. And that results in a bunch of challenges. When you're at 30, 40 people, you start to have more people who don't interact with you on a daily basis. They can't have lunch with you. And that's where people don't start to create their own versions of where we're headed. So there's people are working extremely hard, but not exactly moving in the same direction or exactly precisely in a line. And that results in challenges, right? Because things don't move as fast, things are chaotic, things are breaking, and you don't ship stuff as fast, your community is angry, and your team morale is low. And for me as a founder, and for us as founders, that's a really difficult thing to sit through. Right? Because we have 30, 40 people at a time when this was happening really sacrifice important moments of their life to choose us as their company to work for and to dedicate large chunks of their life working on this mission together with us. And we don't give them the right environment and the right support to live up to their potential. And that really is something that we felt we disappointed the team, and it was something that we didn't feel that good about. And so it was a very difficult time for me and my co-founders. And that was when we started thinking about, hey, we at that time were a company of about 30, 40 people, 90+% of the organization were fresh grads like us, like Carousell literally is our first job. And there are certain things in running a company and organization that in the past we felt like, we don't need to have experience, we can just build first principles. But there are certain things like organization and process and structure and people management that actually you become a good manager when you've either been a bad manager or you've had a bad manager, right? So that was when we started thinking about scaling our organization, having a good executive team in place. We were really nervous about hiring our first senior executive, but we were very encouraged once we brought on board JJ, so our VP of International, our first executive. So he was formerly at Airbnb, the first guy for Southeast Asia, grew that to be one of the fastest growing regions. He joined us to run our international strategy and growth. And he gave us a lot of confidence to build our executive team. Because we think this old guy, no, sorry JJ, you're not old, okay? But this older guy, this very experienced guy, former McKinsey guy, is he going to like screw up the culture? But I think all concerns were laid to rest when he was joining us for one of our regular Counter-Strike nights. So there was a lot of comfort, and then now we have a full executive team, with a VP of product, formerly from Vinted. We have a CFO who was formerly at Comly Media, and he was in another company called Canbay, which eventually got listed on the NASDAQ and got sold for $1.3 billion US. Our VP of engineering has 35 years of Silicon Valley experience, so former Apple, Adobe, Yahoo guy. And even our GM for Singapore, she's formerly the MD for Property Guru. So we now have a bench of really solid executives who really know their stuff in each of the different areas of growing the business. And this was a difficult transformation, right? Like we went through the pain of scaling the organization, but now we're in a much better place with the executives. Yeah.
Okay, so like the next question might be a high point, might be a low point, but depending on your answer.
Yeah, I have to add one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry.
please. Go for it.
Beyond the executives, actually one of our biggest challenges, if you're a Carousell user, if you think about end 2015 or early 2016, our servers were always going down. And that doesn't help with morale at all, because every time server goes down, customers write in, you got to reply. And one of the things that we've had to do is actually bring on board a rock-solid infrastructure team. And so, we had these guys were former Flipkart, Zinger guys, Amazon guys who really scaled our infrastructure. And now we can actually go to bed and actually have good rest.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So moving on, again, it's like I think a few female friends basically wanted me to ask this question. Like, could be a low point, could be a high point. Being a founder is very difficult, right? Especially like you're the CEO, and then like the company is scaling and everything. Do you actually have time to actually date a girl?
Well, I think for me, I'm laser focused right now on the mission. So no, I don't have time to date a girl. But for me, I think this is really a once in a lifetime opportunity to be building essentially what could be the world's largest classifieds company in the world in the next 5 to 10 years. And this is a mission that's really important for me because we think about the next 1, 2, or 3, or 4 billion internet users that are coming online. Everyone's going to be having something at home that needs to be sold. Everyone's going to want to have something unique. And if you think about it, the classifieds in the past 10 or 20 years have not been that accessible as it is today. So we've made selling as easy as taking a photo, buying as simple as chatting. And we feel like this is an important mission to evangelize the rest of the world to also start selling.
I can totally see that you are super laser focused. Like, so are you dating? Answer
No.
is? Okay. I see. Maybe you can find a girl on Carousell.
Hey,
okay.
don't expose our business plan of our next vertical.
I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, so since you talk about like the evolution of like classified, I think that's like something that I really want to talk about a little bit more. So, but before we go to like in terms of the future of classified and also like the future of like Carousell, I want to know like as of now, what do you think is like the most important thing for Carousell?
I think for us in Carousell, the single most important thing is problem solving. So every single day, we interact with our community. That's a big focus for Carousell, and I think that's we think is our core competitive advantage is that we have a team of people that do things that don't scale is their mantra. So we email every single user that signs up. We reply to every single one of them personally. I used to do that in my name, but now of course we have a team to help out with that. And the idea for doing that is that we want to make sure that we know what the pain points of our users are, make sure that we prioritize them and actually put those pain points and solve for them, right, in product solutions. So a big part of what we are really focused on now and having scaled now to having more than 65 million listings on our platform and adding over 120 listings every single minute is discovery. So if you're a Carousell user, how do we make sure that when you open the app, you don't actually have to scroll through tens of millions of listings to find what you want? How can we surface it to you in a much more efficient and effective manner? And that's a very difficult problem for user-generated content, for unstructured content or unstructured data. And that's something our team is very much laser focused on solving now. So how do we leverage our data sets of our tens of millions of transactions to date and all the different things that you're doing on Carousell to give you a much better experience, right? So more personalized experiences, better ways for you to discover items, richer information for different types of listings on Carousell. So I'd say that's one big component of what we are really focused on doing. And then the second thing that we are always figuring out how to do, and this is kind of tied to a little bit of the future of classifieds, is when we started Carousell 5 years ago, we built a 10 times better product by making selling 30 seconds, snap, list, and sell. Can we now, having 5 years of experience and data and learnings, create the next evolution of classifieds? So can we challenge ourselves to make selling a 3-second process? So can we take 30-second selling process and make it 3 seconds? So snap a photo and that's it. So that's our vision. That's something that's a very difficult problem to solve, and we want to make sure that we are making those investments early. So investing heavily in our machine learning and AI capabilities, hiring the best talent from around the world to work on these challenges, topmost priority for us as an organization. Yeah.
Since you talk about really cutting down the process of helping people sell within 3 seconds, can you just walk us through how do you use the data that you have? How do you mine the data? How do you understand the data? And how would all this data actually help to improve the process of selling?
Right. So I think a couple of things helps with this, right? So the main thing with Carousell is that you sell with a photo. So with computer vision, you can actually tell what item this is, what category it belongs, try and map it and cluster it to a certain SKU equivalent. And one of the biggest challenges of selling online, especially for second-hand items, is that most people actually don't know how to price their items. When you look at an item oh no, how much should it go for? So most people tend to be very optimistic. They believe their item has a lot of sentimental value and they price it too high, and they don't get a good experience. So what we have going for us in the past couple of years is now that we know that we have tens of millions of transactions facilitated through Carousell. We know what the clearing price is for different types of items, from which category they belong, and maybe we can suggest a price that will help them clear in the market. And what that does is that for a seller, when you list an item, we suggest a price, it clears in the market, you get a good experience as a seller, and you feel very inspired to sell your next item. And you feel very inspired to go and tell your colleagues, your mom, your uncle, your auntie, your grandfather to also sell on Carousell. So for us, making sellers successful ultimately is key to driving that overall mission of inspiring the world to start selling. Because we want to have very motivated sellers, inspired sellers, people who will really feel delight, and then help us also evangelize this mission together with us. So that's what we are really focused on. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously there are a lot of investment made in terms of machine learning,
We're just getting started. So if any of you guys want to be joining us on this really important mission, you can ping me later.
Yeah, thanks for the ads.
Sorry about that.
No worry. Yeah,
startup founders must always be
yeah,
hustling.
it's okay lah. We'll charge you for that. It doesn't matter. Okay, jokes aside, so obviously AI and machine learning is something that your company is definitely heavily invested in. So I just want to ask, how do you decide what products to build and focus?
I think it's a tough one, right? Because you get so many suggestions from your community. You get so many suggestions from your team who are all rabid, passionate carousellers. It's very funny. In our office, sometimes you see during working hours, you see people dashing out of a meeting room and running to the MRT station to do a deal. And that's perfectly acceptable in Carousell because our community is always first. So you cannot make your buyers wait for you or your sellers wait for you. But anyway, so I think prioritizing problems are difficult. So now we have a little bit more structure, given that we have multiple teams. working in parallel. I think broadly we start from an overall strategy for the next 3 years or a given year. That's something that we have had to do now as we have more people on the team. And we look at what our biggest priorities are for a given time period, say a year. And then we figure out, okay, based on those priorities, what do we think are the most important areas that we need to start working on? And so we are now embarked on this process on our 5th edition of quarterly OKRs in Carousell. So that's something JJ, our VP of International, brought. It's been a great process, right? And so we have built an organization that's very outcome focused. We will tell people like, this is your outcome that you should achieve. And the teams will go and prioritize their own solutions to it, right? And each solution, they may not get it right, and that's okay. So every experiment that they run, we have data that they track. They run lots of A/B tests, and sometimes they ship a feature and roll it out to a limited user base. If it doesn't work out, they'll can it. If they roll it out in entirety and then they realize that it's a failed experiment, they pull it out. So I'd say that broadly we prioritize based on key objectives and strategic objectives of the company, but at the end of the day, it's still very iterative. So we give people desired outcomes. They look at the data, they do the research and talking to the community, and then they figure out and iterate very quickly. I think we still want to be able to be nimble as an organization that tries lots of ideas and make the mistakes quickly and double down on those that work.
So how about like products that you recently launched, such as like Carousell Motors, Jobs? So how do you identify that these are key verticals within the classified segment that you really want to focus?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we do is that we just observe how our community evolves. When we first started Carousell, we literally launched in NUS, so our user base was very young. But today, we've got, I think maybe half of Singapore as users of Carousell. So the population base is now very mainstream, right? So you have evolving needs on the platform. You have majority of a user base now more than 25 years old. And you see the category set also evolving. So you start to see people buying and selling baby and kid stuff, furniture, home appliances. And one of the things we observed was like, hey, people are buying and selling cars on Carousell. So we started thinking about how do we improve this experience? Like how do we give our community a great cars experience? And one of the things that you want to do as a car buyer is, if I'm going to buy a $50,000 car or a $100,000 car, I want to make sure that I pick from a good set of listings, right? And so having a rich supply and a broad set of supply is very important. And that's what we decided to double down on. But in many ways, it was really observing the evolving needs of a community and then building the best product experience for them. Ultimately, it just, again, goes back to how do you build the best experience for your community?
So like sometimes you actually build your own features. Sometimes you buy companies and then you incorporate them as like your own. So how do you decide like when to buy companies and when to actually build it yourself?
Yeah, I think for us, we don't deliberately go out there and like, hey, we want to buy you or anything, right? So in some ways, it was like, okay, we want to improve our cars experience. Let's think about how we improve it. We need to improve supply. Oh my goodness, cars in Singapore, 80-90% are car dealers. Like, what do we know about talking to car dealers? So we started learning about car dealers. And one of our friends was very active in the car space, so is Sanjay and team from the Kali team. So we literally went to him for advice, like, hey, tell us more about the cars space. Through the interaction, we felt like there was a strong alignment, first and foremost, in building products that was very meaningful and solved meaningful problems. So that was the first alignment. The second thing, they had a team that was very experienced in the car space. So in some sense, this was serendipity. Like, we were focusing on cars, so we learned that this team was also very aligned in wanting to build a better cars experience for Singapore and eventually the rest of the world. And we felt like, that would be a good partnership to have. So it kind of happened quite organically. And, we saw that there was a clear path to accelerating our experience improvements in cars, so we decided to make that happen. Yeah.
How much do you pay them for?
I think for us, we just really focused on a great team that was absolutely aligned in the mission. But yeah.
2 million?
Yeah, you know, like for us, we really believe in what we can build together for the long run.
Okay, so we're running out of time, so I really want to ask like this very, very important question, all right, which basically summarizes you know, the entire, this entire fireside chat. So can you just tell us like what is the future of Carousell?
I think the future of Carousell will be a very smart one. And it's going to be a platform that's going to be a very integral part of people's lives. So, you know, making selling a 3-second process is really a means to inspire the rest of the world to start selling. So Carousell will be synonymous with, you know, selling and decluttering, and it'll be the place where you go to find the most unique items that you can't find on the typical retail stores or the e-commerce stores. And I think we want to be associated with a platform that creates meaningful experiences for people, right? So that is the future of Carousell.
Please give like Siu Rui like a really, really loud like applause, please. Like he's been really, really great. Yeah. And for those like single ladies who's interested in, you know, like connecting with like the CEO of Carousell, like please go through me so that I can connect you with like Siu Rui. Thanks a lot, Siu Rui. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.